I'm Melanie.
And I am Saeed.
And we are
two writers
talking shit.
Yes.
Our guest today is a multi-hyphenate. Mm-hmm. She is a singer, a dancer, an actress, a poet. She's also a writer. She is a soon-to-be a director. She's absolutely incredible. There's no one I'd rather have. It's Aydrea Walden.
Yes.
Woo!
Come on. Woo!
That's a big honor. I feel some pressure.
Okay, so Aydrea obviously is very famous for Black Girl
In a big dress. Yes.
You know what I did? I wrote Black Girl in a Black Dress.
Which is the sequel.
That's the...
When she grows old, it becomes a dowager countess herself. Then she'll be Black Girl in a black dress.
Yes, but for now she is a Black girl in a big dress. She's not a big girl in a black dress. Mm-hmm. Don't get it confused and twisted like some of us might have. I'm not going to say who of us
who would have done that.
Yeah. Also very well known for Hip Hop Family Christmas, co-written with our very own Saeed Crumpler.
Yes.
Some very big names coming out of Hip Hop Family Christmas.
Yes.
I would say first and foremost, perhaps Jamie Foxx.
Jamie Foxx produced it, right?
He produced it. Yeah.
MTV.
Yeah. Some incredible
VH1.
stars.
It was VH1.
VH1.
MTV. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Great experience.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Working with Aydrea was like the coolest.
Oh, Saeed saved my life though.
She is.
So why don't you tell us about the inception of Hip Hop Family Christmas and how you came to the project and then how Saeed came to the project?
It was actually a rewrite job. And the producer approached me and was like, "Are you available to do this?" I pitched a couple of takes. The first take they absolutely hated.
Can you pitch it to us the way you did to them?
I don't even know if I could. Honestly, I don't remember what that take was now.
You've blacked it out.
Yeah, but the challenge was they were already in pre-production, so we couldn't just redo the whole thing. So we were pitching takes inside of a pretty narrow window and set of parameters. So I tried to sort of take as close to what was possible and pitch that. That didn't work. And then I came back a couple days later with another idea. They were like, "Great, we love it. And we'd love for you to have that draft done by Friday." That was Monday at about 3 p.m. when we had that conversation. And I said, I probably won't be able to do that. So I would love to bring on someone else who also knows the space, because if you've seen Black Girl in a Big Dress, which is about Victorian era cosplay, you might say, does Aydrea know a lot about the hip hop world? She does not. So I thought to myself, who do I know that is both a talented screenwriter and also knows about the hip hop space? And that was Saeed. So I said, "Hey, what are you doing this week? Doesn't matter what your answer is. You're now writing this movie with me." And so we did.
Yeah,
wow, that's a beautiful, beautiful origin story. Now, had you written a Christmas movie before?
I had not written a Christmas movie before, no, but I love Christmas movies.
But it's a very specific thing, the Christmas movie.
It's kind of a specific thing, but we got it done.
Now, it was 4 days that you wrote
for the first draft.
For the first draft.
Yep.
Have you ever written a first draft of a feature in 4 days before?
No, I have not.
Saeed, have you?
I won't be doing it again.
Never in my life.
What was your technique? How did you guys do that? How did you bang it out?
Aydrea was like, we went through an outline. We shared a Google Doc, right?
Yep.
Went through the outline, was just typing stuff, and then we went back and forth. It was super easy, which is not usually the case when you're dealing with a co-writer.
And also, you two had never
we had not worked together before.
You had never met in person before.
Correct. That's correct. That's correct. But no, we divided up the outline. I think I ended up bullying Saeed into writing the parts that I didn't want to write. But also I felt like the parts that were more in line with what I know of you as a writer and that were also more sort of industry specific. And my outlines are also pretty detailed.
Yep.
So, and we did have a chunk of script to work with. It wasn't like total page one. It wasn't like 0 pages down up to, 100 pages. So there were things that we could pull from the source material.
Yeah.
Okay, so Aydrea, tell us how a little girl from Texas gets into Victorian cosplay.
Oh my gosh. Here's how it happened. I'm from Texas.
Where in Texas?
I'm from Corpus Christi, Texas.
Is that a city?
It's a city. It's on the water.
Because of rap music.
Rap music?
Texas, right?
So I'm the Victorian cosplay girl.
I know,
don't
but
know
I'm just
anything
saying, I know
about
rap music.
Do they talk about Corpus Christi and rap music?
Well, yeah, like Texas and Corpus Christi, that there is like rap music in Texas, and I think I'm in that spot. So that's the only reason why I know it.
Amazing.
Well, he's familiar.
Yeah. Heathers, I believe, was filmed in Corpus. I believe the original Heathers, or part of it, I think. I was a strange only child, and my parents one day were like, we need something to do with her. We need her to burn off some energy. They took me to a Renaissance fair in Houston. I think they thought I was going to run around the field all day and then just like go to sleep. And I was like, oh, I've come home. These are my people.
Oh, wow. How old were you at that first Renaissance fair?
10, 11, 12, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. It
Very
was
formative years.
Really formative years. But here's what it was. A couple of things were at play. Number one, I'm Black.
What?
I'm so surprised. I'm so sorry. I should have mentioned that earlier. I should have mentioned before we got here.
Yeah.
I'm Black. And I grew up in a town in a time that was certainly not like dangerous, but not like the progressive bastion that Los Angeles is. And so being Black and a kid in the space, you were supposed to like certain things. You were supposed to know how to do certain things. I still don't know how to do the electric slide. I don't know where you learned. Maybe one of you could teach me after this podcast is over. And so there was a lot of pressure on me, and I was the only Black kid in my school for a long time.
You were the only Black kid in your school?
For a while, yeah. And so teachers would be like, let me relate to you by giving you some rap music to listen to. And I just was like, that just wasn't where my interests were. And so kind of between that, and I was also a girl in Texas, which was I'm very girly now, but at the time, I was like very rough and tumble.
What?
But I was.
You were rough and tumble?
I was.
In what
I
fashion?
wanted to play football.
No, you didn't.
I did.
No, you didn't.
I wanted to play football.
This is almost impossible to imagine.
I got into a fight with my mother because she wanted me to, for some reason, she wanted me to wear a 2-piece bathing suit, which is very unlike every other thing my mother did. And I would have worn like a wetsuit if I could have. I was like, no, I'm not going to. My body is for myself, and I'm not going to give anyone the satisfaction of seeing it ever.
But now you grew up in a very Christian household, right?
Deeply, yes.
So what part of a 2-piece swimsuit did your mother not think was satanic?
I don't know. I think it was maybe the girliness of it, because that was also really important. The gender binary.
Yeah.
And at the Renaissance Fair, all that to say is that that was the first place where nobody cared that I was Black or a girl. They were just like, do you want to have a good time? Amazing. Let's have a good time. And you could be whatever you wanted to be. You could be, and so also in school, because I was the only Black kid, I was only allowed to play like slaves and servants.
No, stop.
Yeah. My first line in a play in 5th grade. So, because I grew up in Texas, and I was in like our little show choir. So we sang and we did like little plays and stuff.
Was this at your school or at church?
This was at school.
Okay.
And we did have to sing, I Wish I Was in Dixie. It was one of the songs. Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton. Old times there are not forgotten. Look away. Sing that. And then my first line of a play that I was in, I was playing a slave. And this was my line. And it was played for comedy. This was the line. After the Civil War, lots of former slaves moved out west and signed up as cowboys on cattle drives. We drove cattle over 1,200 miles through Indian territory and farmland, and it was a toss-up between who was most hostile to us cattlemen, the Indians or the farmers.
Wow.
And it was...
Oh my God.
So I was only allowed to play slaves and servants, and so the Renaissance Fair, I was allowed to be whatever I wanted to be. I could be a princess or a queen or a knight or whatever, and I loved it. And the other thing I love about that space is everyone's there to have a good time. Like, no one is going through the trouble of putting on a bodice and or a corset and an underskirt and an overskirt and stays and hose and all. No one's doing all of that to be too cool to be there. So everyone's intention in these spaces is to have a good time.
Right.
And so from Renaissance fairs, it became like masquerade balls and Victorian dances and Regency teas. And I just went to France for a Rococo ball at Versailles. Like you do.
Wow. Baller.
Did you ever play football?
Mm-mm.
No.
There was a girl in my high school that played football.
Yeah.
And it was dope.
Does she still play?
No.
Oh.
But she played in high school, and she was like the only girl that I ever knew that like played. I mean, tackle.
Did you ever tackle her?
No, because she was like two. I played varsity, and she was like a freshman. But I need to look her up and see.
Yeah, what's become of her? What's become of her? Yeah.
So you want to play football?
I did.
Nice.
It was just like a rough night. I wanted to like get dirty, roll around in the dirt and fall down. Yeah.
Love it.
I don't want to do any of that anymore. Now today, you can barely get me to go on a hike.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, at the Renaissance Fair,
yes,
when everything changed, did you have a turkey leg?
I'm sure I had a turkey leg.
Yeah.
I don't eat turkey legs anymore.
Saeed, have you ever been to a Renaissance Fair?
No, but I watched Black Girl in a Big Dress.
You got to go to a Renaissance Fair.
I know what a Renaissance Fair is.
Next year, you got to go.
Should we go on a field trip? Will you be our guide?
Yes.
Will you be our guide?
100%.
What should Saeed wear?
Do we have to wear attire?
You can wear whatever you want. You can dress up. You don't have to dress up.
When in Rome.
Aydrea, will you be dressed up?
It depends. If other people are dressing up, I will dress up. If other people are not dressing up, I'm happy to not dress up.
Well, we're going to go the distance of going there.
Yeah.
Why not go all the way?
Why not go all the way?
Is it like, so the only thing I kind of know is like, is it like Hamilton attire? Like the stage?
That's a very different time frame.
Oh,
very separated by hundreds of years.
The black guy, like all I saw was Hamilton. So therefore,
hundreds of years different.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
Now, okay, so tell us about this sojourn. Is that the right word? That you went on to France?
It was a great time.
Okay, tell us where you went and what your intention was.
The whole trip?
Yes.
I was very excited. I didn't study abroad. I have no regrets in life. The only thing that's closest...
You have no regrets in life. What do I have to do to get there? I regret literally everything I've ever done.
No.
I can't go one day without regretting
I regret nothing.
Can you be my life coach, Aydrea?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I need help.
Let's do it. It's just about reframing.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Reframing. I like that. I like that.
Spoken like a true life coach.
Yeah.
It's all about reframing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But one of the things that I didn't do when I was younger that I am sad that I did not do was I never studied abroad. I don't even know if my high school had the opportunity. My university certainly did, but I didn't take advantage of it. Anyway.
What university did you go to?
University of Texas at Austin.
Okay.
That's tight.
Certainly they had a study abroad program.
Yeah.
And there was one other time in my life when I was going to go live abroad, and I had gone to visit, and I went abroad, and then I came back, and my boyfriend at the time got a really devastating medical diagnosis, and we thought he was dying, so I married him instead of going abroad. He's fine now. I just want to say he's fine now. Damn. But every time I've tried to like move, then another time I was going to move abroad, and then I got a boyfriend, so I stayed for that guy. And then finally I was like, I just need to go for something. So there is this Rococo ball, this Marie Antoinette ball at the Palace of Versailles that I intended to go to. I learned about in 2019, was like, I shall go to France in 2020. And the world was like, no, you're not going to do that. So now in 2022, the world opened back up again. And so I went to that. And if you're going to go to a ball, you might as well go to a ball in a palace. And if you're going to go to a palace, you might as well go to Versailles. It was absolutely stunning. And then I just wanted to stay. I wanted to see if I could break the working remotely, like how I wanted to push the boundaries of working remotely and see what I could get away with. And so I kept my job, and I worked 4 or 5 weeks in France, traveled around, ended up going to, there's an animation festival in a town called Annecy. And that was 5 weeks after the ball. And I was like, I'll just stay.
Now, which job were you working on while you were there?
I was working on a currently unannounced Nickelodeon show.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. So I was just writing and taking meetings. I was on scripts, and I was writing and taking meetings just on a shifted time frame, and it was great.
Okay, so now I'm talking a lot. So
no.
Am I talking too much?
No, you're talking the perfectly amount.
Okay, the perfectly amount. Okay.
The perfectly amount.
That's always the amount.
I felt like that was a really rambling tale as well. I'm so sorry.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
No,
I mean, there's just so much about you that we wish to unpack and share with the world.
Sure.
And I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss a moment,
Who would? Who would want to? You don't want to regret that also.
No, I don't. I mean,
you don't want to add.
I can't add to the list.
The list of regrets
is too long.
Yeah.
You've graduated from the University of Texas in Austin.
I did.
How do you make your way into the entertainment business in Los Angeles?
Sure. So as that weird little girl in Corpus Christi, Texas, I always knew that I wanted to do film and TV. I was not popular in any way, shape, or form in school. I was wildly unattractive and very awkward. So I had few friends. So on Fridays, when like other kids were going to, I don't know, dances or on dates, whatever they did, I was in front of the TV and I was like, these are my friends. And I loved it. I loved it in the way that I think kids love TV. It's like the characters on TV were going through things. I was going through things. I loved seeing them and relating to them that way. And I was like, I want to do that, not having any idea how to begin to go down that journey. My parents are an engineer and a narcissist. So they were of no help to me. So when I went to college, and I knew that I wanted to write and I wanted it to be on a big scale. I never really wanted to be like an independent filmmaker. That just wasn't what I wanted to do. I like a big brand. So I went to college and I did journalism because it was writing and it was on a big scale. And I was like, well, that's close enough. And like nobody in my sphere was going to go to Hollywood and write for the TV.
Right.
So I studied journalism. I graduated. I moved to Washington State, where I worked for the Seattle Times Company. They own 3 papers in the state, and I was in a fellowship where I worked my way across the state through all the papers. But when you are a new baby reporter, you have to cover a lot of crime. And I did not like covering a lot of crime. So basically my job was to call up all the first responders every day and be like, what terrible things happened overnight? And then I had to write about them. And a lot of times it was just like a robbery attempt, but sometimes there were real, like, terrible tragedies, and I did not want to write about them. And then my spirit was broken. If any of you follow true crime, the Green River serial killer was captured while I was, content warning, I guess, if you don't want to hear about serial killers, was captured while I was in Washington, who I believe is the most prolific serial killer like we've ever had.
What?
I think so. So he was captured while I was there, and I had to go to some of his pretrial hearings. And so first you had this person who I was at this time just like a 21 naive little girl from Texas. Like, I did not want to be around him. And there were dozens and dozens of victims' families who were all actively grieving next to me, and I didn't know how to deal with that either. So I would go back to the newsroom and my boss would be like, oh my gosh, what an amazing story. Did you talk to him? And I was like, no.
You mean the killer?
That man is a serial killer. Absolutely not. Did I talk to him? What if he gets free and comes for me?
Right.
Absolutely not. My boss was like, this may not be the field for you. And I was like, fair enough, fair enough. So the fellowship ended, and I had a little boyfriend at the time who also wanted to come, who was also working in news, who also wanted to come to LA. And between the two of us, we had like $1,000 and like big dreams. So we drove to LA, and through a fortuitous series of random events, I ended up getting connected with a writer's assistant job at Nickelodeon.
Nice.
That was my in, and that was kind of how it took off.
What's crazy is that a lot of the times, like, you know, like writers are always like, how do I get in? How do I get in? How do I get in? And it's like, somehow you just have to get in however you can. Yeah. And then when you're in the system, you can like maneuver.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I always say that to people, I'm like, just get in. It almost, in my opinion, it almost doesn't even matter what that job is, as long as you're on the inside. Whether you're working in HR or production or whatever, just get inside. And I ended up getting that connection because when I was living in Yakima, Washington, I did a play. I did Godspell, and Turn Back, Oh Man was my solo for any Godspell fans. And a woman who was related, who was doing stuff with the show, heard I was moving to Burbank, and she was like, oh, my son is it lives in Burbank. But her vibe was like, my unmarried son lives in Burbank. Please call my unmarried son. Yes. And I was like, I don't want to call your son. But then I came to town. I was bored for a few weeks. I finally called that guy, just be like, oh, I have nothing else to do in town. And he was friends with someone who worked at Nickelodeon, and they happened to be hiring at the time. And I think the moral of that story is do the stuff you love. I did that play because I wanted to do a play. I didn't have the thought of like, I'm going to do a play in Yakima, Washington. And I'm pretty sure that is going to lead to me getting a job at Nickelodeon. I was like, I'm going to do the stuff I love to do and interact with the people who are also doing it and make the connections that way.
It's also crazy how the two of you both came to Nickelodeon from such different paths.
That's true.
Yeah. You never know how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
Okay, now talk to us about the inception of Black Girl in a Big Dress, and if you can, catch us up to speed on where it is now.
Sure. So Black Girl in a Big Dress is a web series that I created starting in 2016, which feels like a long time ago, about an awkward historical cosplayer trying to in love with like 19th century stuff, trying to date and do everything else in the 21st century with her 19th century ideals and manners and things. And I made this show because a few years ago, sort of in that time, like 2014, 2015, there was this other, I don't know if y'all felt it, but I felt like there was this other like diversity push in town, but it was weirder. It was very much like I would go to meetings and they'd be like, amazing, you're a Black girl, and we have this gritty urban show to do, or we have this like, ironically, I wrote Hip Hop Everything Christmas, but like we have this like hip hop based gritty show for you, and that's just not who I am. And it was very embarrassing for everybody. And I was talking to a friend and I said, I just wish there was a show that was all the things I liked. I wish there was like a romantic comedy that's got like British comedy vibes and sketch comedy vibes and a love story, and like where I get to wear an amazing costume. And my friend was like, why don't you make that? And I said, yeah, okay. So I did. And I made it, I wanted it to be producible for me. Like I knew that I didn't have like $1 billion to spend. So I wrote it to the locations I had access to. I splurged on a couple of things, but wrote it very specifically to what was available to me at the time. I did the first season. I thought it was just going to be a writing sample. That was my goal, was just to be able to be like, here, watch these 5-minute episodes. You'll get a much better idea of what I bring to the table. But then it just kind of took off. Mm-hmm. And in the show, I talk about going to balls and teas and things that I didn't actually know existed yet. And then when I released the show, all the people from that community in LA and beyond were like, oh my gosh, why have we never seen you at these events? So that was really exciting to discover that they were actually real. So then I made the second season to see if we could hold the audience, and we did. And there are some exciting things happening that I'm not at liberty to talk about at the moment, but they're exciting.
Yeah, we can concur. That they're very exciting.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, you're extremely sophisticated, wildly intelligent. How do you, Aydrea, approach writing a script for kids?
Are you calling kids dumb and unsophisticated?
No.
That kids are stupid. I mean, I think that's what makes the best kids programming, actually, right? Is programming that doesn't speak down to kids. And that, I mean, I loved that as a kid, watching shows and learning things through them, whether it was literally like they said a word I didn't know, or they talked about something that I didn't know about yet, or just the sophistication level of the language. It wasn't talking down to kids. So a lot of my kids' stuff just sounds like me. Really, it's more about the stories are simpler. I write in a lot of 11-minute shows for kids. So the stories are simpler. You don't have like an A, B, and a C story. You usually kind of just have one A story. You have to provide a more connective tissue between characters making decisions. In in an adult show, someone can look at a picture of their old friend, and then the next scene they're at coffee with that person, and we are able to fill in the details because we're adults. And children, you just have to fill in a little more of that, and just the footwork of like, oh, here's this picture of so and so. I sure miss them. I'm going to call them, and then I guess they don't call anybody, but it was a really bad dialogue. I wouldn't, whatever show that was, I wouldn't watch it. But yeah.
So how did you get in that space of writing for kids?
It was just my first job was at Nickelodeon, and it was for a kids show. And so my first mentors and contacts were there. And honestly, that's how I got siloed at first. If you read the poetry I wrote in high school, you definitely would have thought I would be actually writing for dark emotional dramas.
Do you have any of that prose that you can pull for us now?
I wish I did. I can tell you one poem I think about all the time, because as much as I love my younger self, sometimes I'm like, oh God, Aydrea. The first line of the poem is, today is the last day I will ever be young. And then I babble on for like a page. And then the last line is, it is September 26th, whatever year it was, the eve of my 14th year.
Love it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Powerful.
What is the, like usually what writers ask me is like, what was the script you wrote that really, really worked for you? Like got you traction and got people like talking about you and being like, "Oh, you should hire Aydrea," or passing it around? Like, what was the one?
That's a great question.
Or was it a piece of writing?
That's a great question. I'm thinking about my samples.
Mm-hmm.
I did write a sample about marrying that guy because we thought he was dying.
That's tight.
And then he didn't die. And it's very honest. It's, it's funny. It's a comedy. And that has certainly gotten me work. I do think Black Girl in a Big Dress was a bit of a game changer for me because it was so specific, and I think folks really got excited about that.
That's tight though, because usually it is like something specific and personal to yourself, something that you're interested in. And then you also said like something that you felt was not there that needed to be there. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, that's dope.
Okay, quick question about reps.
Yeah.
Now, I feel like you sort of recently are with a new team. Is that right?
Probably about a year and a half or so.
Okay, so can you tell us how you came to them and sort of how it maybe ended with the last team and why?
Oh, these are great questions. So the team I have now, I spend a very short amount of time working as a development executive. And while I was working as a development executive, part of my job was to talk to random agents and, see who their clients were and what their clients had. So one of my agents, I met her in that time frame. And then when I stopped working in development and went back to writing again, she was still a contact. We would still chat every once in a while. And I didn't reach out to her about representation until I felt like I was not able to manage the workload anymore. Basically, I had a staff job. I had the one job. It was great. This is fine. Then I started to get some freelance. Then I started to get a little more kind of development stuff and interest in other things. And it was getting to a place where I couldn't really handle all the conversations myself. And I knew there was information I was missing that I wanted filled in. So when I approached her, I was able to say, hey, listen, this is what I have on the table. These are the jobs I think I have coming up. Here's this other project, Black Girl in a Big Dress, that I think is something really special. Here's this whole package. Are you interested in working together? I don't know if you're taking on clients, but are you interested in working together? So I was able to sort of bring a lot to them. That's how that happened. My previous rep was a manager who I actually love how we met. We were both assistants at the same time for different entities. I was working at DreamWorks Animation Feature Studio, and he was an assistant in the voiceover world. So we were often in communication about recording movies, but that was it. And then one day he was like, hey, like me and my buddy are having a party. Do you want to come? And I am a jerk. So I was like, I cannot believe that this guy is asking me to a party. I'm a professional. How dare he ask me to a party? And my boss was like, you stupid girl. Like, please network and go to the party. And I was like, fine. So I went to the party, but I didn't like him. I was like, I don't know if I trust you. I don't know if I trust this person. And then as I started my own networking, just going to other events and parties and things, I just started running into him a lot. We ran into each other at a number of places. So after that happening 4 or 5 times, I was like, hey, we are often at the same events. It seems like we have stuff in common. Okay, fine. What's your story? And then we became friends. I had a different rep at the time and who I wasn't happy with. And this new manager, we had a conversation about it, and he was like, look, when you're ready to leave, I would be ready to sign you. So I broke up with that manager from a long time ago, and then ended up working with this one manager for maybe 7 years, a long time, a good chunk of time. And then we just kind of grew apart. We just had different tastes ultimately. He's great. I wish him the best. I think he's doing well as far as I can tell. We just kind of had different tastes and different vibes ultimately. And so I ended that, and it was fine.
And how did you end it?
I said...
The logistics of breaking up are always tricky.
Sure. I got on the phone. I asked if his assistant could not be on the call, because often they're on the call, right? And so he dismissed her, and I was just like, hey, listen, like, I don't really feel like we're going in the same direction, so I I don't feel like we need to be in this relationship anymore. And he said, okay, cool.
Classy.
That was it.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Class act.
What's your writing routine? Like, do you have a schedule? Do you have somewhere you sit? Do you have a certain tea? Do you have any rituals, routines? Like, what is your vibe?
I like to write in the morning. I like to wake up early and do my little meditation.
Like it.
My journaling, and release my regrets to the universe. And then get some very strong coffee and write. I'm most productive in the morning, so I like to write in the morning.
Saeed and I are actually soon to be launching our own coffee line. We'll be sure to gift you some.
Please do. Please do. I love just very strong coffee. By about 1, I'm not nearly as focused, and so that's kind of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also a big fan of when you can. Like, I'm not one of those writers who's like, except when we wrote the movie in 4 days, I'm not one of those writers who's like, I wrote for 8 hours yesterday. Right. I love balance. And so I am a huge fan of whenever you can do it, be like, I wrote 2 pages today.
Right.
If I'm not on a deadline, 2 pages will still get you a pilot in
15 days.
In 15 days. In 2 weeks. Yeah.
No, it's funny because I usually tell people, like, look, if you could just sit down and write 1 page, like if that's like your goal, like I'm going to just write 1 page today,
yes,
which is a very achievable goal.
Extremely achievable.
Then it's like at the end of 3 months, you have a feature script.
Yes.
Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I just,
100%.
I do the same thing. That's
100%. And if I'm like in a different phase, like an outliney phase where I'm not doing script pages, I'm like, all right, 40 minutes.
Yep.
That's it.
What program do you use?
Final Draft.
Nice.
Except for use anything else?
We wrote Writer Duet.
Oh yeah, we did though. Just because
that was useful.
It was easier to share. The only thing that I liked about Writer Duet was that I could pull it up and we don't have to load the thing. Like, I think on Final Draft you have to wait for it to load. I have to give you a password. Writer Duet, I could just type in it. She could hop in it, and I don't have to like do any. It updates itself.
It was like a Google Doc.
Yeah, it was a cool doc.
Now, Saeed has solicited the internet for questions.
Yes.
Now, while we have Aydrea here, should we try to answer 1 or 2?
Yes.
Would you like to choose one, Saeed? One a specific?
I will choose one. Oh, here we go. Since we're talking about script writing.
Yeah.
Like, how do you manage notes? Like, what is your process from a studio network? Like, how do you manage notes?
Well, luckily I was raised in an emotionally chaotic household where people had constant feedback on my behavior. So I learned.
Skin, huh?
Yes. Yes. I will also say that journalism was a bizarrely useful career because I am old. And so I wrote for newspapers, which were these physical printouts on which the events of the day would be written.
Right. Can you go into that further?
They were paper,
on
right?
paper.
From the tree?
Paper from the tree.
Oh, okay.
And people would drop those off places.
They would drop them off, and
just
you could
randomly,
and you could like unfold
to addresses. You had to have a subscription.
You subscribe.
You subscribe to the paper.
And you mailed a check. Actually,
You
mailed a check, another piece of paper.
You faxed in a check.
A lot of paper.
And so what would happen as a reporter is you would work all day on a story, and the next morning you would literally see it balled up in the garbage.
Crazy.
And so you're like, it didn't matter how good it was. It didn't matter how proud you were. You had to start all over again. I think that actually was also really good for just moving through stuff. So notes, I mean, they're part of the process. It's unlikely that you'll never get notes. I am pretty good about not taking things personally. So every once in a while, you'll get someone who who was hastily typing notes, and they'll just be like, this isn't funny. I'll be like, okay, well, I'll come up with another joke. Great, no problem. When I'm going through them, when I'm actually attacking them, I usually go, it depends. It depends on where my attention span is. Sometimes I go easiest to hardest, but sometimes it's like, if it's the kind of note that is going to, really affect lots and lots of things, then I'll do the hardest. But yeah, I mean, I think after doing it for a long time, you just kind of get used to it. I wish I had a more profound answer than that.
No, that's really good. I mean, first of all, she's saying she's been getting notes since birth, so it's like water off a duck's back.
Sure.
And also not taking it personally, which I think that's really key. I have a real problem with not taking notes personally. Here's something I really struggle with, and so tell me how you deal with this. let's say you're writing a pilot. And so then you have to satisfy notes from a production company. You've got to satisfy notes from a studio. Like sometimes you have to satisfy notes from a network. Let's say you're getting these notes. You really don't agree with them, right? Or it's like, it's sort of the sort of thing where your exec or your producer can't even express clearly what they want the note to be.
Yes.
How do you handle that?
I wish I could share specific examples from the trenches, but sometimes I have discovered, in terms of a note I don't agree with, sometimes I have discovered that it is simply a very small miscommunication. I think I can talk around this one enough. There was a show that I was working on. It was a show for kids. So the way we handle emotions is very important and delicate. Emotions can't be too big or too scary. And there was a character who was an animal, and we said the character was scared of something that a human was doing. That's a big no-no because we don't want to teach children that it's okay to scare animals. So that's what the execs were saying. From our point of view, we were like, the kid isn't doing it on purpose. This is just a natural reaction. This went round and round for weeks, and the story hinged on the animal being scared. And we were just too late in the schedule, and we didn't want to blow up the whole story and have to start it from scratch. We had an hour-long conversation, and finally, after that hour, I was like, what if the animal's confused? And they were like, oh, perfect. And I'm like, amazing. I wish we could have come to that sooner. But sometimes there's a really small adjustment that satisfies the like big energy coming off a note. I've also discovered that sometimes people will phrase notes as questions, which to me, the way my brain works, is like, I must answer that question. But sometimes they're just genuinely asking because they didn't know. And so sometimes I think clarifying, like, is this a discussion point or is this something that needs to change is really helpful.
Oh, that's really good. That's really good.
Is.
And sometimes this is the one of the most unromantic things I feel like I think about the industry. If you just don't agree with something, I think it is checking in with yourself and being like, what's my goal here? Is my goal to be an auteur and get every single thing that I want? If it is amazing, then fight for it. Or is my goal to get this to the next step or something else entirely? So I've been on projects where I don't love the note, but it is not the hill I am willing to die on. There are bigger hills. And so I'm like, well, I would like to finish this project and get paid for it. So I'm going to address this note and do it because my goal is actually to make this team happy so I can work with them again or something along those lines.
That makes sense.
That's wisdom. Is this a hill you're willing to die on? That's what you got to ask yourself.
Facts. One question people are asking is financial
I'm very wealthy.
Questions like how do you?
I'm not at all.
No, but here's the thing though. You're consistently working.
Yes.
Right. Do you have any like advice for screenwriters as far as like, like one thing me and you often talk about is like, when you sign a contract, that check is not coming for a while. So just like, you know what I'm saying? So do you do you have any financial little nuggets for these people out here, Aydrea, because you're consistently booked?
I will say I have been in Los Angeles since 2002.
That's a feat. So,
and I have been consistently booked in writing work for the last 4 years.
Yep.
So that's thing number one is this is a long haul and it really takes grit to stay in it.
Yeah.
The way that my life worked, I was not someone who could afford to not have a job.
Yeah.
Some people can, and that's great, and some people can't. So I got into production. That was always the goal when I came to town. I was like, I want to get a job inside the industry. And that's always like my first recommendation is take care of your stability. If you're someone who needs to have a job, get a job. And it's unromantic and it's like not fun, but do that and give yourself that stability and know that it's a long journey. So that feeling of like, but I want to be like making this kind of money on this kind of project tomorrow is not going to happen.
Yeah.
So get your stability and then start to build what you need to do to write into your life, right? Figure out which works better for you. Are you going to write before you go to work, or are you going to write after you go to work? If you want to be a writer, you've got to get your samples together. So you have to make a choice. Figure out what it is, and then start practicing it. I feel like that's very boring, unromantic. Is that?
No, that every you've dropped so many nuggets of wisdom for us today, Aydrea. We cannot thank you enough for being our premier guest.
Is this the end?
This is the end.
Oh my gosh! What? Wait, but can I ask one question? Can I be really pushy? There is one question I wanted to answer.
Yes.
Selfishly, this is me being very pushy.
Please.
I saw the list of questions, and you can also cut this out later if you don't want it.
We'll never cut this out, and you can't make us.
I saw someone asking, what do you do to get like diverse, inclusive story? I'm paraphrasing, past gatekeepers. And I wanted to weigh in about this.
Like, we should be so lucky. We should be so lucky. Please.
I feel like I've been I feel like I should have been asking y'all questions. Now all of my, this is where my neurosis comes out. I'm like, I should have been asking them questions. I've been very rude this whole time by simply answering questions.
You've been a perfect guest.
Amazing. Please.
10 out of 10, no no's.
Amazing. So, because I do hear this question a lot, and people are like, oh, I have this like really groundbreaking, diverse, inclusive story, and the gatekeepers won't let it go through, or something to that effect. And I understand the frustration, because you have a story that's really important to you. You have something that you're not seeing in the market. You want to see it, and you don't understand why it's not, and you've done work and you want it to be out there. These are my thoughts. And it's just helped me so much get work across the line. Number one, I do think that words are very important. That's why we're writers. If I didn't think words were important, I probably wouldn't be a writer. So even thinking of people as like faceless gatekeepers, I think is doing those people and yourself a disservice. They are producers and executives who have a job to do. No one's waking up and saying, I can't wait to go out in the world and crush some dreams today. I'm going to say no to every script I see.
Oh
no one's doing that. You have an executive who's like, I have to find this kind of project that comes in at this budget to make this kind of money, or I'm going to get fired. Same with a producer. They have to bring in a certain type of project at a certain budget level that's going to make a certain amount of money and can be done in a certain amount of time with the certain partners, or they don't have a job. So they're just people trying to do their jobs, like we're just people trying to do our jobs. And the second thing I always think about is remembering that we are in the business of entertainment. And so latching onto what's entertaining about your story, not the moral imperative for whether or not that story should exist.
Facts.
So like, some of us nerds will go on Netflix and be like, you know what? I don't know very much about this culture. I'm going to find a movie about this culture. But most people are like, I want to laugh, I want to cry, I want to fall in love. And so when you're pitching stories, like make sure that that's what you're pitching. This is a story. This is the most amazing love story you've ever heard, because it's about a person who does this, and here are the stakes, and then here's what happens. And then as your B plot, and what's extra amazing is it's set in Kenya, and we get to have all this amazing architecture and all these amazing, but like the story and what is going to be entertaining about this, the core entertainment value of the story, what it's going to make people feel. The one sentence, which is such a pain. I hate trying to get the stories down to one sentence, but you have to do it. Getting it down to one sentence. This is a story about a person who, against all odds, does X. That makes it clear why we're rooting for that person. And then after that, get into the like, oh, and by the way, they have these attributes and traits that are also going to be really interesting. Sorry.
That's excellent insight and excellent advice. And you need to do a masterclass. I'll be the first person to sign up. Saeed will be the second.
I'll be the second person to sign up.
Yeah, but only because I beat him there.
You beat him there. You're so fast.
So she downloaded it first.
Yeah.
She did?
Yeah.
What is your Twitter so people can follow you? And
all my handles are variations of Black Girl in a Big Dress.
Okay.
Twitter is BLK Girl Big Dress, I think. Instagram, which I don't post very often. So
TikTok
is Black Girl _Big Dress.
Wonderful. So go follow Aydrea for more.
Oh my gosh!
Nuggets of
Thanks
wisdom
so much for having
and
me.
beauty.
And I got a cherry. I got a cherry buble.
A cherry buble, and we will have you on again. Because
Yes.
Obviously, we're gonna have more questions.
Oh my gosh!
We appreciate
Thanks so much.
it.
This was so fun, y'all. What a treat!
Aydrea, we love you. You're just the best.
Oh my gosh, I
There's
love
nobody
y'all. This
better
was
than you.
wonderful.
Aydrea Walden, people.
Melanie Mars, Saeed Crumpler.
Two writers.
Talking shit.
Two Writers Talking Shit is an original podcast created by Melanie Mars and Saeed Crumpler. Our producer is Kayla Guess. Our audio engineer is T. Kelly.
Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you damn well please. All we ask is that you subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and give us a glowing review.
If you're not going to give us 5 stars or any glowing reviews, then why even log on? Save your rants for an open mic.
If you have any questions for us, and I do mean any, you can email us at twowriterstalkingshit@gmail.com. That's the number 2, and then writerstalkingshit@gmail.com.
See you next episode.
Bye.